Couch multiplayer games are a dying breed nowadays. While Nintendo still sticks to it, sometimes exclusively with certain titles, many other AAA developers have chosen not to bother and just focus on online co-op. It has been left up to indies to carry this torch, and that responsibility has led to games like Overcooked and Moving Out, 4-player couch co-op games where every player needs to work together in an arcade-like fashion. And Bish Bash Bots fits this mold perfectly, but for the tower defense genre. Now, this is a genre I don't entirely gel with. Many of you watching might assume Dylan Rolling Weston is the only one I like because I'm a big Nintendo fan, but I'm from the Bloons generation, so my tower defense experience goes way back. And thankfully, I can add Bish Bash Bots into this elusive library. The game is similar to Dylan actually, in the sense that the players run around an open area placing turrets down, while also having the ability to attack enemies directly, but the attacks aren't as fast paced or as visually over the top as Dylan. Hitting enemies with your wrench in Bish Bash Bots feels more like an extra line of defense because the attack is fairly repetitive, and given the enemy's health pool can be quite large, it's not the most effective move. Unless you knock the enemy down a hole of course, or hit the specific shield robots that appear. In those cases, melee is your best, well, only bet. But of course, like all games of this genre, it's the towers you need to place in order to win. Enemies will come from various locations depending on the map, and the players need to protect an EMP that is charging up at the end of the level. Each level has specific locations where you can place the towers, and as the game goes on you unlock more and more towers to choose from. You begin with a simple gun and cannon, which I found a little useless in the grand scheme of things honestly, but you go on to unlock sniper towers, these field generators that slow down incoming enemies, and towers designed specifically to battle aerial enemies. Each tower has enemies it's good and bad against, so studying a map beforehand to learn what type of enemy will appear is the key to not wasting all your resources. Because you see, to build a tower you need to spend bolts, and you can only get bolts by destroying enemies or demolishing your carefully constructed towers. And bolts aren't shared, players will need to fight each other for them. Thankfully, the only thing you have to pay to upgrade your tower is, well, your time, as standing by and hitting a tower over and over again will upgrade it, with the highest rank being 5 stars. At the start of the game, I was a little worried about the game getting a bit dull and repetitive. My friends and I found ourselves spending most of a match just standing there and wailing on our own turrets until they were strong enough to wipe out bots that dared walk in their crosshairs. Thankfully, by World 2, various new mechanics began to be thrown into the mix to spice things up. I think this is where Bish Bash Bots really shines. Every level of the game has some kind of unique mechanic or hazard that keeps the game feeling fresh. Sometimes it can be very simple, like having to jump across floating platforms to get across the map, and other times it can require a lot more planning and thought about where you place the turrets, such as an underwater stage where pollution bubbles stop your turrets from working properly, so you need to constantly run around and pop them before they gunk up your turrets. These unique mechanics see their best use in the game's missions, as each level has 3 missions that the player has to complete. One of these is the universal mission of don't let the EMP take any damage, but the final mission of each stage is usually something unique to it. This can vary from defeating a level by placing a limited number of towers, defeating an enemy with a stage-specific mechanic like a plant bomb, or making sure not to fall victim to any of the stage-specific hazards, like suffering heat stroke in the desert levels. Completing these missions unlocks a goofy little hat to wear, one of the few ways you can customize your player. I like the goose one the best. The other way that players can customize their player character is by equipping gear that you unlock as you play the game. Everyone starts with a deployable shield that can push bots away, although be careful not to push them closer to the EMP, that was a definite point of frustration during my playthrough. But later you can equip gear that lets you dash, or gear that lets you build upgrade packs to increase the speed of tower upgrades. You can only equip one piece of gear at a time though. Gear isn't the only power up on offer however, as each character has a unique ability. Yes, the character you pick matters, and I kind of wish you could swap between characters in the hub area rather than having to exit out the game. Each character has the same general stats, but their special skills can give the party a boost to their upgrading turret speed, running speed, attack power, and the speed of their gear recharge, as both the gear and specials are on a cooldown. The turret upgrade and gear recharge are objectively the better 2 skills though, and Turret Girl has the best design, so why would you not pick her? Well, I guess you can't in 4-player mode, as everyone has to be a unique character. No double ups here, that wouldn't make sense for the story. And what is the story? Well, robots are staging an uprising after spending so long working under humans, and it's up to these 4 science kids and their AI companion to power all the robots down, figure out what's caused them to revolt, and stop the uprising at its root before the city gets destroyed. It's a decent premise, and I really like the visual style of this game, going for a very Adventure Time Bravest Warrior vibe. That said, as much as I like the characters and aesthetics, it does feel like the story and dialogue can drag on a bit too much. In a single player game I might not mind as much as it's just me and the game, and you can totally play this game in single player, but with a group of 4 who all just want to get into the action, the intro to the game really dragged, as did certain dialogue sections before the various levels. When you add on to that the fact that the early stages are very easy and straightforward, the beginning of this game can be a bit of a bore. It's a slow start, but once you get past the first world and see what the other stages have to offer, then it can get quite addicting to play. It can also get quite hard. The difficulty does scale depending on the number of players you are playing with, but even with 4 people, there were some levels that we only just scraped by on. Looking at you, level with the bot healing bubbles, I hated that one. Bish Bash Bots was an enjoyable game to play, both on my own and with friends. While it can be a bit slow and repetitive at times, the missions to master and good difficulty curve, as well as obviously just being a fun party game, kept me coming back to this one. If you're looking for a fun game to play with friends, both locally and online, then you can't go wrong with Bish Bash Bots. I want to thank the developers for sending me a copy of this game to review. I hope it does them well, and if you're interested in picking up this game, then let me know in the comments below. Don't let it get buried under the weekly avalanche of games that there are nowadays, or you'll miss out. I want to thank our patrons. The $5 plus tier are going to be on screen right now. We couldn't do this without them, and you can join that group by checking the link in the description below. With that, always remember to like and subscribe so that you always remember to return to the source.